Greetings, BArcadians, and welcome to another episode of Gaming News Weekly with your hosts, as ever, me, Tabs, and my good friend and channel compadre, Rich. Say hello, Rich.
Hello and welcome, everybody.
So just in case this is your first time, we put out a show every single Friday at 5 p.m. UK time. We cover off three main stories in the feature. Of the kind of the biggest articles in the games industry in any given week, or at least what we think is particularly interesting. And then we do an everything else round afterwards, just to kind of fire off a few things we couldn't cover in detail. But before we go into that, we always chat about what we've mostly been playing in a given week, if we've been able to fit anything in at all, that is, Rich?
Yeah.
So, do you want to let us know, mate, what's been going on in your world?
So this week I've mostly been playing nothing. I don't think I've even picked a games controller up this week. Yeah, I think I might have mentioned possibly last week, if not, this is news to everybody, but I've got back into The Walking Dead, and that seems to be taking a lot of my my spare time. So it's sort of like, yeah, entertainment, so to speak, rather than gaming this week. I'm still playing, or still will be playing Death Stranding when I pick it up, but yeah, at the moment, nothing to write home about this week. What about you, Tabs? I'm suspecting possibly more of the same from you.
I've actually got something to mention. Okay. I mean, we've mentioned a few times, so I've got a big project on, so that has been the theme in recent weeks, just not had time to do anything. In fact, look on what I'm wearing. I've come straight off the site today. I've got some insulation in my throat, so if I start coughing, BArcadians, you know why. But in a nutshell, I have started up a new file, Rich, on Skyrim on the Switch.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we were mentioning I bought the Outer Wilds to try and play with the missus. We've given up on it.
Already?
So, yeah, any Outer Wilds fans, I'm sorry if you're watching this. I still have every faith it's a fabulous game, but it's making the missus sick.
Yes.
And I'm finding the puzzles very obscure and not that logical. So, and it's just, for me right now, I need somewhere where I don't have to think too much, and I can kind of just crack on autopilot, and that wasn't it. So I've switched to Skyrim with all this chatter about the re-release, the new content there is. I've switched to Skyrim, created a new character, like a Khajiit. I'm going to try and make it in like a battle mage character, so it's going to be really strong in battle, but also I've got some good magic skills as well. So that's my new thing to keep me going, mate.
Nice.
But that's us in a nutshell, Rich. So shall we move on to the first topic this week?
I'm game. Let's do it.
So first up, Microsoft reveal Nintendo letter. So this comes courtesy of GameSpot, and this is what they had to say. In the new Xbox browser-based museum that celebrates the console's 20th year anniversary, Microsoft showed a snippet of the letter it sent to Nintendo as part of its past campaign to acquire the Japanese company. Sent in 1999 from Nick Thompson, Microsoft's former VP of hardware, to Jackie Story. Strange name, Jackie. Never come across that before. Nintendo of America's former executive VP of business. The letter is mostly obscured. However, there are snippets of legible text. Bless you, Rich. The letter begins with, "Dear Jackie, I appreciate you taking the time to try to arrange a meeting with Mr. Takeda and Mr. Yamauchi to discuss a possible strategic partnership between Nintendo and Microsoft on future video games platforms. I understand Mr. Takeda's concerns about the possible partnership and will try to illegible the guidelines he has requested." Other sections of the letter go on to mention Project Dolphin, the codename for GameCube. It's uncertain what Microsoft is stating in the letter about Dolphin to Nintendo due to the giant text overlaid on the document. A pity, since it'd be interesting to see how Microsoft tried to use its then new project to pitch Nintendo. We do know from a Bloomberg article chronicling the history of Xbox that Microsoft's attempt to acquire Nintendo were pretty much rebuffed completely. Former Xbox executive Kevin Backus recalled, Steve Ballmer, former Microsoft CEO, made us go meet with Nintendo to see if they could consider being acquired. They just laughed their asses off. Like, imagine an hour of somebody just laughing at you. That was kind of how that meeting went. So I feel like we've mentioned this before, but I just thought it was a nice, there's a lot of negativity about at the minute in the games industry, a lot of bad practices and things we don't want to see. So I thought it was just a nice little story, bit of nostalgia. And it kind of made me think, like, I wanted to ask you, Rich, what do you think a world would look like where Microsoft didn't do their own thing? There wasn't an Xbox, but they kind of clubbed up with Nintendo. Because I presume, the idea would have been they'll focus on the tech side, the engineering of the hardware and the architecture of new consoles. Nintendo focus on the ideas and the software and the games. I actually feel like that could have been a match made in heaven. Like, because we always, me and you like a bit of tech. And as much as we admire Nintendo's frugal attitude to technology, it's good for their business model. We always do, I think, lament a bit, don't we, that they don't put a bit more investment into their technology so they can also compete with the big boys, on the cutting edge. So what do you think that world would look like, and would you be interested?
It's really interesting, isn't it? Would Xbox and Microsoft, would they still make games? Maybe not. Maybe, like you say, they would just have their Nintendo studio, so to speak, creating games for themselves. It's weird, isn't it? It would be very interesting to see that alternative universe where Nintendo went, yeah, all right, then let's do it. What would that be? Would we still get some of the masterpieces we've got from Nintendo? Would we still get Breath of the Wild and some of these other games that we've seen that were just incredible pieces of gaming, history now? I don't know. It's weird. I feel like some of the charm of Nintendo games are the fact that they're not always working on the greatest hardware, and so they're using more quirky animation styles and stuff. But for instance, Breath of the Wild, that makes that game for me. If that was an ultra realistic looking game, I don't know, would it be as fun and as enthralling to play? It's hard to say, but would that be the route that Microsoft would have sent them down with possibly market leading hardware? I don't know. It's interesting. It's very interesting. And they've got some balls on them to say, yeah, we'd like to buy you, Nintendo, given at that point how big Nintendo was and still is today, of course.
Well, again, and I've mentioned it before, I've got a chip on my shoulder about it. Microsoft, Xbox kind of buying their way into the games industry. I kind of thought they did it initially, and then obviously recently with the Bethesda acquisition. And obviously they tried to literally buy their way into it via Nintendo. But no, it's interesting what you're saying, that Nintendo essentially often have to revert to more stylized, their art direction. They get round, as you say, the obstacle of inferior hardware. Whereas, they would have been able to jump those steps, go for the ultra realistic, like Unreal Engine sort of games. Yeah. But in doing so, you'd lose a lot of that charm. And also, I suppose, on the other side, you could say, would we have Halo? Would we have Gears of War? Yeah, of other classics that I can't think of on Xbox. But if we could pull peep into the window and see what that kind of multiverse was like, it would be certainly very interesting. So, BArcadians, any thoughts of your own? Share it in the comments. Just thought that was a bit of a, pique your interest if you're interested in that sort of thing. But Rich, take us on story number 2 this week.
Absolutely, and the second story is facial animation Uncanny Valley. And I have to say, this really caught my eye this week. Tab sent me a little tech demo of this, and I was very, very impressed. So this is what Kotaku had to say about this. Photorealistic faces in video games have been with us for a while, but they have still been a long way from what you'd call realistic. As while we've got the polygons and textures almost perfected, facial animations are still stuck.
Badly written, mate.
Yes,
this is not your fault.
Are still stuck in the depth of the uncanny valley. This is one way we might get there. You're looking at the work of VFX studio Ziva Dynamics, whose Unreal Engine-based examples here are shown off the creation of facial animation tech, which is capable of some truly outstanding stuff. As an example, look at the model on the left generated from real-time capture on the right. So this, I've just put it on, you'll see in the middle, that's what their facial capture is. Looks really cool. The real-time stuff looks fine, excellent even, but also not that much past what we're used to at the moment. Now look what happens when you run the same model through some terabytes and reference data and pass it by some AI learning. Now I have to say, this is some of the most incredible, and I have to say, quite frankly, almost photorealistic facial expressions I've ever seen. And the fact that they were running like side by side, it's outstanding how good this is. And once this is put into a game, I feel like it's really going to move like storytelling forwards and how it portrays to the audience, us as gamers playing it. So yeah, very, very interested in this.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that basically it's like it's obviously almost somebody on mocap pulling faces, and then that's being translated into the digital world. But it's just like the way the face deforms and the skin texture changes, and it looks almost you could show someone and they'd probably say, why is someone being filmed pulling funny faces without actually realise it's being computer generated. So I think it's it really was amazing to see how this could be implemented as technology into video games development, given, as they say, terabytes worth of reference data has had to be used in AI learning. But then again, we see things like that applied all the time, don't we, in new technologies? And go on, mate.
The one thing I will say, and I've talk about this a lot, stuff like this, the implementation of new technology that seems like unfathomable to be able to have that as a brought into the mainstream games. Things like this in 5 years' time become the mainstream. They're in games. Mocap wasn't a thing for a long, long time, and then once it became a bit more readily available, lots of game studios started using mocap then. And I think it's one of those. This is one of those incremental gains that we're going to see slowly over time as that technology becomes more accessible, like shoehorned into those great titles that we see. So I think this is a fantastic move forward for the game, and hopefully it's going to massively increase the sort of the way you get into a game and your involvement in it. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in the future with this stuff like this.
What we need is, Epic to come up with something to put it into their latest Unreal Engine.
Absolutely.
And then as soon as there's that tool set that people can adopt, it will just be a given. But yeah, if you haven't already seen it yourselves, BArcadians, I would push you to go and check it out, because it does look, a bit strange, but also really cool. Yeah, I think there is still a very slight hell, isn't there, Rich? If you watch it closely, you can still just about see, I think that's CGI.
Yeah, agreed.
It's really thin.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. It is very, very good. So go check it out.
So, third and final story in the main feature this week reads GTA Trilogy fixes and an apology. So we've ripped this from IGN, who had this to say. Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the definitive edition, has released its first major update, and it provides fixes for Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. As detailed by Rockstar, these fixes include everything from holes in the map, to issues with character models in cutscenes, to the shockingly awful issue with rain visual effects in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. This is all part of Rockstar's plan to improve the quality of Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the definitive edition, as according to them, the updated versions of these classic games did not launch in a state that meets our own standards of quality, or the standards of our fans have come to expect. Excuse me. Additionally, Rockstar has gifted everyone who owns Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the definitive edition on PC, the classic PC versions of Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and San Andreas, as another way to make up for the problems. It's also made these classic versions available once again on the Rockstar store as a bundle, so you can buy it standalone. These issues were noticed quickly after launch, and they included quality concerns, Twitch-specific problems, troubles with the Rockstar launcher, missing elements, and so much more, as we know, Rich. So we've obviously been covering this. This felt like a pretty significant, turn in the tale. So I wanted to cover it. Rockstar have come out with this official apology now, which, as far as gaming apologies go in the industry. It was pretty good, to be honest. Apart from at the start, what did they say? They said something like, they hadn't noticed these technical issues, which makes you think, oh dear, just be open to it. Admit that you've put a foot wrong here. But then it later goes on to say, they're going to put this right. It doesn't detail necessarily how far they're going to go, but hopefully technical issues like frame rate, resolutions are going to be optimized. And then obviously the bugs across it are going to be tweaked and fixed. But then it was a nice gesture as well to say, at least to PC players, we're going to give you for free the 3 original versions, and we're also going to shoot that back on the store for people to buy standalone, just so you've got another option. And also, I suppose, until they fix the new version, another way to play the game. But what did you make of it, mate?
Yeah, I
nice
mean,
to see.
It was definitely refreshing to see, Rockstar and A Games Studio hold their hands up and say, yeah, we've properly misstepped here, we're going to put it right. Although I feel like it was somewhat veiled in a we didn't realise, which I think is utter BS. Like, how could they not, unless there was no testing done on this game at all, very unlikely that a game would release without any testing whatsoever. I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't have known about the problems on this game. So I don't know, I feel like it's failed in a bit of almost tongue-in-cheek for them. Oh, we're really sorry, we didn't realise. Anyway, we'll move past that. But it's great. I'm happy that they're being proactive about it. I mean, the fact that it's called the Definitive Edition somewhat makes me smirk, because it's so far away from the Definitive Edition. It's worse than the original, so how can it be a Definitive Edition? So for me, they've got a lot of fixing to do, and it doesn't sound like it's going to be a short term. So I think we're in for a good 6 months of fixes on this. I was actually reading earlier on that there's some suggestion that there won't be further GTA Online, GTA 5 Online and Red Dead Redemption Online new content until they fix these, such as the scope of work required. They're going to have to be pulling people off that, which I think is telling in terms of how much work there is to be done on this. But yeah, obviously it's great that they've PC people, who are playing on PC, have got something that they can sort of play as a stopgap. Not sure how I would feel if I bought it on the PS5 or specifically the Switch, which is quite bad, or even on an Xbox, how I would feel about the fact that I wasn't getting anything because I can't then play a game that I'd bought. So I think there's good things and bad things here. I'm happy that something's being done and they've sort of owned up, or sort of owned the fact that it's a problem and they're going to fix it. So
it sounds like, especially from what you just said there, Rich, about basically rallying all their teams to work on it and delaying other projects. It sounds like they're taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And I'd really just hope, I'm not expecting them to perhaps make wholesale changes, but as long as they can optimize it for each platform that it's on to a point where it's smooth, very playable, and looks polished, I think I'd be pretty happy. I can't see that they're going to go in and redesign a load of character models and come up with new textures and some of the more wholesale changes I know some people would like to see. But let's just hope they can make them technically perform well. And the last thing I wanted to say is totally skipped my mind. I was going to say something about this entirely. Never mind, mate. Let's move on to everything else.
Excellent. So, everything else. So, first up, a little update on the Activision Blizzard that we spoke about quite in depth in last week's show. So, further to that, Activision Blizzard standing by Bobby Kotick, which was quite a surprise for everybody. The big three, Microsoft, Sony and Nintendo, have all come out with a statement this week putting significant pressure on Activision Blizzard to act. It seems like they want to see Bobby Kotick moved on. Because he seems like a thorn in the side from everything that we seem to understand. And then there's some suggestion that, if he does stay around, or if, tangible changes aren't made, they will consider their positions in terms of whether they would have Activision Blizzard games on their systems. So, it's some strong words from three of the biggest players there are in the games industry. So, very interesting. We'll see what happens with that.
Absolutely, mate. I think they're doing the right thing, and the industry should sanction. We touched upon it last week, but sanction this, who's essentially a bit of a shit, isn't he? From the sounds of it, Bobby Kotick, to boot him out because enough's enough. So next up, did we have one more thing as well, Rich? Something about Kojima tantalising something
go for it,
again.
mate. I was going to put that at the end, but go for it.
I think in a nutshell, you might have to help me out here. So he's put out some sort of a tweet, has he, or something on Instagram that people think is a shot of Norman Reedus in the background. And then he's put some cryptic sentence about how he's making tweaks to a script. Was it, Rich? Something like that?
Well, interestingly, I'm not entirely certain why. I'm not on Twitter, so I don't follow his Twitter. So I follow him on Instagram, and almost all of his Instagram posts have no text to them. They're just a picture. So I have seen the picture you're referring to and thought, they're obviously working on something, but there was no text. So the text thing that you're saying about is new to me. I also saw that today he posted a picture on Instagram where his coffee mug had like tape on it that said boss. And I thought that was interesting. Why would that be? Is that some reference to MGS? There's been a lot of references in Kojima's Instagram timeline to MGS recently, with playlists and games from old MGS's, old games, records of MGS. So I don't know, it's all very cryptic as always with Kojima, but the thing is with Kojima, he's always got little breadcrumbs everywhere. So these things, although you could argue that we're looking for things that might not be there, often with Kojima, they are something. So we'll have to wait and see what happens on that one.
I think the problem is that the main rumours that linger in my memory of recent times, we're turning this into a main story here, Rich, never mind, is the fact that one of them is that he is working on Silent Hills and PlayStation have managed to make that happen. But the other one is he's working on a project with Xbox.
Yeah,
so
it doesn't make any sense, does it? Like those two things can't be happening at the same time.
So that leads me to believe, is somebody, perhaps close to Kojima or him himself, throwing up some smoke?
Yeah.
To try and cover all tracks, so he's still got some surprise. But anyway, it's great to see. We love to see it. We love Kojima. But let's get us back on track. Go on.
I mentioned to you the other day, have you seen this on Kojima's Instagram? And you were like, I'm done with it. I'm done with all the smoke and mirrors. I can't be bothered with it, which I thought was hilarious.
It does wear you out. It does wear you out.
But anyway, next up we've got a new Pokemon Converse range is out next month. I thought Tabs might be looking at that one.
I saw a quick screenshot of a Pokeball on the side of a pair of Converse, and I thought those look cool. But you know what? They're so expensive, aren't they? And I can't buy all this stuff. I'm already looking actually at a Demon Souls varsity jacket on Insert Coin, mate.
Nice.
It's sweet. It's got "You Died" on the an inside pocket as well.
Oh, nice.
So anyway, next up, Lord of the Rings studio Weta is making a game based on a major worldwide IP. Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was okay. Well, what's that then?
I feel like Weta are owned by Microsoft or somebody like that. I wonder what that could be for.
Yeah, I don't
know. Finish us off, man.
And finally this week we've got PlayStation patent could speed up switching between apps and games on PS5, which would be really cool, although it's quite fast as it is. So.
Yeah, that's good to know, though. So I think that will do us for Arcadians this week. Sorry, it's perhaps a bit scattershot and disjointed. We are perhaps not planning things as well this week, Rich, because of my project in the background. But we got through it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've not already, please remember to smash the like button. It really helps to support us. It's the most direct way you can support the channel. Try and help us break through that algorithm, which is proving very stubborn, Rich?
Absolutely.
And if you love what we're doing, then please make sure you subscribe and you ring that bell for notifications to get told whenever we put a new video out there or a new news show every week, Friday, 5 p.m. But that's enough talking. And I think, Rich, that's another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed.